Picture this for a second. A quiet terrace, the smell of warm paper, maybe the faint hum of a laptop charger in the background. Two colleagues, let's call them Mira and Arav, are sitting under a neem tree. Mira's flipping through a slim notebook packed with meeting minutes, and Arav is holding this battered old external hard drive. It sounds like a pretty peaceful scene, right? But their conversation is actually tackling one of the absolute most pressing challenges that organizations face today. They're trying to figure out how to navigate organizational memory and huge technological shifts without losing that essential human element. It's a massive puzzle, and honestly, it's one I'm sure you've wrestled with during your own corporate rollouts.
And that brings us right to the core of the issue. How do we do this? How do organizations change without losing their human pulse? How do we hold on to what we learn, actually make sense of it, and adopt shiny new tech without leaving our own people in the dust? It's a central dilemma, whether you're running a local small business, a busy hospital, or a massive, sprawling global corporation.
Okay, let's dive right into this. To solve this dilemma, Mira and Arav hit on this brilliantly simple foundational metaphor. Because, let's be real here, most corporate data isn't some beautifully organized structure. It's a junk drawer. It's a mess. So they suggest building a knowledge house. Now, this house isn't built of bricks and mortar, but of data and understanding. And it's put together in three absolutely crucial phases: warehousing, mining, and management. Let's break down what each of those actually looks like in practice.
First up, we have data warehousing. Now, I know it's super tempting to think of this as just some cold, dusty IT archive that nobody ever looks at, but in reality, it's the sturdy cellar of our knowledge house. It's where all those raw records are ordered up so that later on, hands can reach for them without stumbling around in the dark. Basically, it's a structured memory. It exists for one reason: so a team can take past moments and cleanly reassemble them into meaningful insights for the future.
But, how do we actually make sense of everything sitting in that cellar? That's where we need to rethink data mining. Forget about cold, calculating algorithms for a second. Think of mining as a form of deep listening. It's the process that literally turns our stored memory into a cohesive story. By sifting through the cellar, mining finds rhythms, it spots rare signals, and it uncovers these stubborn correlations that human eyes would just completely miss. It's really a way of noticing, one that empowers your people to make choices with incredible care.
And finally, we reach knowledge management. Now, this isn't just another software platform you have to log into. It is a living, breathing ritual. It's the daily practice of turning all that stored data and mined insight into a shared understanding. Imagine a university learning center, right? They took faculty notes, lecture recordings, and student feedback, and actually had students write short summaries based on them. Then, new lecturers used those exact summaries to avoid repeating clumsy exercises and build on what actually worked. It's about indexing decisions so future choices don't just repeat old mistakes. Ultimately, it protects your organization's absolute most valuable asset: institutional memory.
Let's look at the real-world power of this structure, starting with the warehousing piece. Take a city food bank that used to, just kind of guess its supply needs. By building a pretty modest warehouse of unified delivery logs, volunteer shifts, and donation records, the director could finally see exactly which neighborhoods were constantly undersupplied. They moved entirely from guessing to targeted action. They started calling local kitchens to schedule super-efficient pickups based on hard data. The result? They cut waste drastically and fed significantly more people, all in the exact same budget. Pretty amazing, right?
We see a really similar transformation when we apply the data mining aspect. There was this community health clinic that was stuck in a rut of reactive care, basically just treating symptoms as people walk through the door. But what happens when you actually mine the data? They discovered this totally hidden pattern. Cough complaints were spiking exactly 2 weeks after busy market afternoons in one specific lane. Armed with this new story, they shifted to proactive outreach. They placed sanitizers exactly where they were needed and successfully reduced their clinic loads.
Okay, let's do a quick rapid-fire look at 3 completely different industries, proving how mining hidden insights solves very unique problems. First, a regional co-op realized that what they thought were random demand dips were actually caused by a single late supplier. Boom, problem solved. Next, a cultural festival combined ticket scans and vendor sales to identify exactly which formats drew crowds. That let them adjust their schedules and drastically reduce dead time. And lastly, a microlender analyzed mobile payment timestamps to discover their borrowers' actual liquidity patterns. This allowed them to rephase repayment schedules and rapidly drop their default rates.
All right, moving into Section 1, the slow technological relay. So, Mira closed her notebook and asked the next really big question. When we bring in all these fancy new tools to gather this knowledge, how do they arrive without leaving the people behind?
The crucial point to remember here is that managing technological change shouldn't be treated as some strict, deadline-driven IT project. It needs to be a slow relay. It's a gentle handover that absolutely has to begin with listening and must end with local ownership. Because if you try to force it, you're just going to drop the baton.
To put that into perspective, contrast a sudden, jarring rollout with what this one hospital did. Instead of a hostile system takeover, they orchestrated a slow handover. When they introduced a new patient management system, they actually ran parallel workflows. Clinicians kept using their comfortable old routines, while trainers shadowed them, adapting the new system's fields to match the actual language those practitioners used every day. They even respected natural shift rhythms and festival breaks, which is a level of empathy you almost never see in software deployments. By the time the new system became the single source of truth, it felt like a natural evolution, not some top-down corporate invasion.
But pacing is really only half the battle. Change also requires stories that travel. Narratives do way more to shift human behavior than any top-down instruction manual ever could. Think about it. When a school upgraded to digital attendance, it wasn't the rigid instructions that won people over. It was teachers casually sharing short stories about how the system saved them time and let them actually connect with absent students. In a farming cooperative, drivers and farmers were trained to monitor new solar chillers. When they saw the lower spoilage firsthand, they became these incredibly compelling storytellers, inviting neighboring villages to come see the success. Everyday technicians turned into community champions.
That brings us to Section 2, Reframing Tech Resistance. Okay, I want you to prepare for a pretty major paradigm shift regarding the pushback we so often see during tech rollouts. Resistance is not merely obstruction, it is information. Let that sink in for a second. We almost always view employee hesitation or pushback as sheer stubbornness, right? People just don't want to change. But friction is actually a vital feedback mechanism. If people are resisting, your system is probably missing something critical about their daily reality. Let's see what this looks like in action. A bank introduced these new biometric logins, but the staff hesitated to use them. Now, instead of forcing compliance, management actually stopped and listened. The realization? Remote branches had highly intermittent networks, so the adjustment was simple. They added an offline fallback and adoption immediately soared. Or take the retailer who launched an AI recommender. Customers were getting offended by totally irrelevant offers. The firm didn't blame the customers, they realized the AI lacked human context. They hit pause, added a human review buffer for a month, and rebuilt the model. Listening to the resistance literally saved both of these innovations.
On to Section 3, Patterns for Managing Change. Let's shift away from the philosophical mindset for a minute and get into some highly practical steps drawn from Mira and Arav's notes. Here are 3 actionable patterns you can use to introduce technology with genuine humility. Number 1, pilot and parallel run. Let people safely rehearse new practices while the old system acts as a safety net. Number 2, co-design and training. Get your day-to-day users involved early, so the tool is built around their lived routines, not some executive's abstract idea of efficiency. And number 3, scaffolding and rollback. Give your team simple fallbacks and have the humility to hit pause and adjust when the real-world context doesn't match your original master plan.
And here is exactly how those steps look out in the real world. A municipal office staged their new citizen portal release. Staff got it first, then just one neighborhood, then finally citywide. Every single phase allowed for crucial language adjustments that massively improved overall uptake. Over at a manufacturer that was facing major mistrust over a new shop floor dashboard, they just started having weekly conversations. Supervisors explained the data anomalies and invited corrections directly from the line workers, and you know what? Trust quickly followed. Finally, an NGO added a simple report-by-voice fallback to their monitoring app, completely respecting how their field teams actually moved and spoke in remote areas. And finally, Section 4. Expanding capacity to care. By the time Mira and Arav were wrapping up their conversation, they had drawn 2 really profound commitments in the margins of their notes. First, technologies absolutely must expand our capacity to care, not replace it. Every single system needs human checkpoints where empathy, judgment, and context are actually exercised. And second, our knowledge stores must be honestly tended. Our warehouses have to be fed with honest data. Our miners need to be guided by questions that actually matter. And our systems must remain readable by the very people who are going to rely on them tomorrow.
Which leaves us with this final, really lingering thought. I want you to look at the systems, the data, and the tech rollouts happening right now in your own organization. Ask yourself, does your technology expand the capacity to care? If it doesn't, well, maybe it's time to head back down to the cellar and start listening just a little bit closer. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer. Keep learning and keep caring.